Hello, my name is Simon Miller. It's Monday, and on Mondays we do a little series called Miller's Musings, where I, indeed, some man called Simon Miller, muse for a little while about certain topics that I'm passionate about and believe that we as a species, as a race, do not talk about enough. I will say some housekeeping work before we begin. Like an idiot, I put some washing on before I start doing this video, so if in the background you can hear some crazy noises, it's me washing my clothes. There's a good piece of advice to start the video. It's really important to have clean clothes. I mean, you do whatever you want, but anyway, we're kind of going back to something we've talked about before, but given that the World Cup in Russia is on at the moment, and given a few things that a few football players have said over the last few weeks and months, and given some responses that I'd seen on Twitter and social media, I thought this was a good time to maybe revisit some of that stuff and kind of talk about depression overall, because something I've seen a lot of, and like I say, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. This is just how I feel about it. And I feel like it's a stigma that not only is bad for us all to have, but if you're also suffering with depression, I don't think it helps you either, if that makes sense. So anyway, the idea is that if you're a football player or a celebrity or a singer or a musician, an actor, whatever, if you've managed to achieve your dreams or achieve your goals, you're not allowed to be depressed. And I think the reason it's bad anyway because it's nonsense. You know, money or power or success or fame that doesn't. Mental health and depression and anxiety don't. It doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't go, oh, you're poor and unsuccessful, I'm going to attack you. It just is. You know, it's like breaking your arm. You can't. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen. It doesn't really matter what the circumstances around that are. And like I said, the real thing, the problem I think it has, is that it takes away from what is actually really important in life. And again, this is my opinions, and as always, if you are suffering, you should absolutely go and seek help, be that with a medical professional, talking to a friend, talking to a family member, or talking to somebody you can trust. But for me, let's take, for example, we'll call them Wall. No one's called Wall, therefore we're not, and it doesn't sound like I'm hinting at anyone. But Wall, let's say Wall is suffering from depression or is struggling with anxiety, or every day is just a little bit hard. Reinforcing this stereotype that and everyone should chase their dreams. Of course you should, and you should be productive, and you should be hardworking and do all of those things. But saying that if you do all of that and get to this magical land where all of that, you look back and go, hey, I did it, is going to get rid of any mental health problems that you may have, is absolute nonsense. And that's where the bad idea came in. I read an amazing interview with Jim Carrey a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, whenever it was, where he even said he sometimes can't believe that he is now this 50-year-old man or whatever he is, and he can say to himself, I really did achieve my dreams, and I'm rich and all of this, and yet I still kind of feel exactly as I did 20 years ago. Because it goes to show that that isn't the solution. That isn't the answer. Like the freedom or the peace that people are looking for does not lie down that road. Because ultimately, as cheesy and as hippie as it may sound, it is true. The source of all of that already lies inside of you. Now that sounds, again, like I said, that sounds cheesy as hell, and you're more than welcome to roll your eyes. But the point is, that's not easy. I'm not saying it's like a light switch, because it's not. I'm not saying that I've achieved that. I'm not saying I know anybody that's achieved that. Like I always say on these videos, life in a positive way is just trying to get through the day, and you figure out what's best in your world to do that, and that's all that matters. But it is true, and that's why I don't like it, especially with football players at the moment. Oh, what have they got to be sad or depressed about? Or the one I always go to, the Linkin Park singer, who, I can't remember his name now, Chester Bennington, I think it was his name. I get confused with his name. Only because it sounds ridiculous. There's a guy over here in the UK, a pop star called Daniel Bedingfield, and I get those two confused because of their name. But I think it's Chester Bennington. Nobody could believe that he took his own life, and yet, I think if that isn't it's awful, it's horrendous. And to think he had a wife and kids, and he was rich and he was successful and he lived all his dreams, but that wasn't enough for him to find inner peace. And that's why I think it's so important we have these conversations and we mention people like that. And who was the football player? Danny Rose. Danny Rose came out and said the same thing, that when he was injured, and I think a family member took their own life, that the football wasn't enough. And I'm sure the fact that he was injured and he couldn't play what he loves, because that's why you should chase your passions. When you find something that you love and you throw yourself into, that does bring you a sense of happiness and a sense of peace. And that's why that stuff is important, but it is not the be-all and end-all. And that's why when I see all this stuff on social media going, oh, well, they shouldn't feel like that, it irks me a lot, because, again, it's reinforcing a stereotype that if you are at this Wall, Wall's depressed, he may think, well, if I start aiming for that now and I kind of suffer through all of this, I'll get to where I need to be. Look, it could happen. Everybody's different. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, But I'm saying that's not where the focus should be. The focus should always be on the individual. The focus should always be on the problem. And the focus should always be on the fact that happiness already exists. We just need to find it. And I completely understand there are exceptions to that rule. If you're struggling with a disease or a family problem or a relationship problem, yes, ultimately that's going to affect your overall happiness. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I get a bit worried. Worried's not the right word, but I get a bit irked and a bit, perturbed when we have this idea that getting to a certain place, it's the journey, not the destination, right? You don't want to get somewhere and then realize you missed out on the fun of enjoying the journey. And I think it's the same when it comes to mental health and depression. You have to focus on you, and you don't need to, focus on this magical spotlight, whatever that would be. And you think when you get there, oh, I'm going to be okay. Because again, you may be, but you may not be. And that's why we need to have the conversation more. This is more about the way people feel about mental health and depression that I get worried about. Because again, I think it creates a bad vibe about it all, where you're only struggling because you haven't sorted things out here. That could be true, but it may not be true. Like, again, we've talked about it on this series before, even standard phrases. And I don't get offended by much. I think I'm quite my skin is quite thick, as they say. But I don't like, or I can see massive issues when, with small phrases like, you should man up. Someone said that the other day. I can't remember what it was now. It was on something to do with sport. I can't remember. Someone said, "Oh, you should just man up." I mean, that's so debilitating for someone that may be going through issues and is a male, and you're not allowed to be sensitive, not allowed to be sad. Of course, you're allowed to be sensitive and allowed to be sad. We all are, and if you try and cover it up, that's just going to make it worse. So, all of these videos, this is just a way to try and remind everybody. Not even try and remind everyone, just try and join in the conversation and get the conversation started. That. Yeah, of course, like I've said, if you love acting and you think you want to be an actor, of course you should pursue that, because that's going to give you a sense of self and a sense of self-worth. And self-worth is so important. I think a lot of people suffer with depression and mental health issues because they don't have that sense of self-worth. And it's almost like, well, who am I? And throwing yourself into something you love can actually give you the idea of who you are. That can give you a personality, to a lack of better sense, because it feels right. I mean, how many times have you said that you're doing something, you felt like you've been doing it for years? It's because it works for you and it works for your personality, and then you're going to be able to find out who you are more as a person and take it from there. But having this sort of blanket rule that, there's some magical door that you're going to open one day and feel okay just isn't true. Wouldn't it be great if it was? Of course it was, and that's why I can understand people that get addicted to drugs. I mean, I've never even smoked a cigarette because that's just how I am as a person. But I completely understand. If you're feeling that terrible and every day you wake up and it's so hard and someone says, you take this magic pill and it's going to make you feel better for a few hours, of course some people are going to take it. And again, that's something else when people go, oh, I don't understand why people take drugs. Well, then that's a bad stigma too, because we should be accepting and understanding of that. Because these people, certain people, individuals, are in such bad ways, they just want to feel better, even if it's for a few hours. And we should focus on that. And we should never bring in this negative connotation when we're talking about stuff when it comes to mental health or depression or anxiety or any of that stuff, because it doesn't help. We should look at whatever positives they are, and we should look at constructive ways of trying to help those people. Because again, we're all just searching for answers. That's the problem. We're all just searching for answers, but really the answer is here, because all we have is today. Even 5 minutes ago when I was talking, it's irrelevant now because it's done. And I'm going to hit stop on this video in a minute. That doesn't matter because we haven't got there yet. It's called The Power of Now, and it's really cheesy and it's really ridiculous. A lot of people roll their eyes. That's absolutely cool. You're allowed to do whatever you want. But at least having a grasp of that concept and thinking about that concept and trying to appreciate that concept, it can help loads. Doesn't mean you're not going to worry. I still worry. Everybody still worries because you can't help it. That's how we are as human beings. But being more aware of it and hopefully having conversations like this, my wish, for lack of, no, you know what I mean. But I would hope that it just helps. I know it would help me, and I hope it helps you as well. So yeah, it's more just that. I heard someone talking about, I don't understand why these football players get so down, and I was like, because they're just people. They're football players are what they do, and they're blessed with the skill, and they've worked hard at it, and they've practiced at it. That doesn't stop sadness. It doesn't stop emotion. Doesn't stop depression, anxiety. It doesn't stop any of that stuff. And I think that's the problem, right? You wouldn't say, oh, that football player, how did he break his arm? What are you talking about? Sometimes things just break. There's nothing wrong with something breaking, but it is important that we focus on it and we make sure there is a sense of importance around it, and that we talk about it. I want to live in a world one day where mental health is not. Okay, it's always going to be bad to a certain degree because you don't want anybody to suffer, but it's not considered this kind of a thing because it's your brain. If anything, it's, there should be less concern about a broken arm. There should be more concern about your brain. What's more important than your brain? You are your brain and all that kind of stuff. Right, I like to keep this around 10 minutes, which we are now. So we'll wrap it up. Like, share, subscribe. There's a comment box below. Start the conversation. I'll make sure I join in as well. People ask, I hope so I've left it to the end this time. You don't have to do anything. Patreon.com/Simon316 is how I support myself with my personal videos. You can donate, great. You cannot donate, great. It doesn't matter either way. These are not what these other videos are. Don't get me wrong, because I like to. This is a passion thing, 100%. So I just wanted to point that out. But thank you for watching. If you think this could help anybody, please do share it with them. I'm on Twitter at Simon316 if you want to come have a chat. All the comments below, of course, like I've said. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Miller's Musings. I'll see you in a week's time.